the reason that Suella Braverman has a great office of state is the fact that she did emerge as the voice for the right of the party, and Rishi Sunak is governing a coalition, which is a little bit less shaky than it was when he first came in. But he needed to have someone to represent that flank, and I think Suella Braverman, through her leadership efforts, did much better than lots of people thought she would do. If you think back when she was Attorney General, lots of people in the party thought that would be the furthest she would get.
Is the Home Secretary in trouble? The former Conservative chairwoman, Baroness Vorsi, accused Suella Braverman of using racist rhetoric when referring to grooming gangs made up of British Pakistani men, and now she's been criticised by a number of other Tories. Katy Balls is political editor at The Spectator. She joins me now. Morning, Katy.
Morning.
Is Suella sailing a little bit too close to the wind here?
I mean, it depends. I think it depends how you're judging it. In terms of, is she receiving a lot of criticism at the moment, including some from her own party? Yes. Does it seem as though she's in trouble, at risk of losing her position? I think that's pretty unlikely. And I think, Baroness Wolsey, for example, if you look at interventions over recent years, is quite far apart from where the Tory party is these days. So while it's a criticism that generates headlines and does reflect some thinking, I don't think it's reflective of the feeling amongst the Tory grassroots or the general, membership.
That's really interesting in that, yes, I think you're right. Baroness Wolsey, was at the heart of David Cameron's cabinets, but, doesn't really represent the mainstream of Conservative Party thought here anymore. But Suella Braverman has been in the headlines this week. Her criticism of police for removing a set of gollywogs from an Essex pub has caused some to question her judgment. How's that gone down among colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, I think on that one, there's two parts to it, which is there are lots of, if you look at the comments she made, she was very quick to say what they should be focusing on is violence, solving these crimes. And lots of MPs would agree with that. I think that there are some in the party who also think that she should have been much more critical of the fact that these dolls were in the pub in the first place. No one's disputing the fact that police resources should be focusing on violent crime. But I think there's some unhappiness that there wasn't much condemnation of the idea of it, if that makes sense. But I think, generally speaking, if you're looking at sort of Braverman, those comments come up, and that's, I think, was reopened things. But lots of people talk about her comments of an invasion, which did make some in the Tory party really uncomfortable. They think the rhetoric goes further than Rishi Sunak would. But on the broad policy, she is pretty aligned with Rishi Sunak when it comes to what the focuses of the Home Office should be. You have a dynamic where, as Home Secretary, she tries to push things probably a little bit further than the Prime Minister would. I think he is a bit more risk averse. But on boats, for example, which is where I think most of the rhetoric, which is being cited, comes from, that is something where actually Number 10 think that you do need to go further than previous governments have done. And having Suella Braverman there with this quite intense rhetoric helps to shore up parts of the party that have been in the past unconvinced that Rishi Sunak is taking these issues serious enough or is on the right of the party, despite the fact he actually is quite right-wing.
Tobias Ellwood, the Tory chair of the Defence Select Committee, said of Braverman's comments, these comments, arguably designed to appeal to a specific political cohort, do not sit well with the new pragmatic and cooperative approach which the Prime Minister is now injecting into Number 10 and is seeing us improve in the polls. I'm interested by your comments there, Katy, saying the Home Secretary and Prime Minister are more in tune on the substance than their sometimes dissonant tones would imply. But the interesting political comment there from Tobias Ellwood, arguably designed to appeal to a specific political cohort. How much of what Suella Braverman says and does is about cementing her status as the spokeswoman for the right of the Tory party and their natural candidate in the next leadership election, whenever it comes?
So I think it's always a factor. I mean, the reason that Suella Braverman has a great office of state is the fact that she did emerge as the voice for the right of the party, and Rishi Sunak is governing a coalition, which is a little bit less shaky than it was when he first came in. But he needed to have someone to represent that flank, and I think Suella Braverman, through her leadership efforts, did much better than lots of people thought she would do. If you think back when she was Attorney General, lots of people in the party thought that would be the furthest she would get. And so she has made herself almost a voice for the right. Does that then extend to leadership ambitions? I think in a leadership contest, you could imagine her going for it again and having some support, and potentially amongst the membership. The other thing is, you've got to remember, there was a Conservative Home poll recently. Suella Braverman's quite high up at the top. think, and a lot of that to do with recent vote comments and vote action. So again, the thing she is doing is appealing to the Tory grassroots for now, at least. So you can't write her off. I think, although Suella Braverman does cause, I think, a headache for some in government, and not everyone, when it comes to some number 10 plan, which is quite convenient for Rishi Sunak in a way, because he is obviously trying to appeal as this competent government. You hear Tobias Ellwood saying that. But then you also have Suella Braverman, who'll go a little bit further and will appeal to other parts of the membership. So I don't think it's such an unhappy arrangement for now as some of the comments would have you believe.
That's really interesting. Katy Balls, political editor of The Spectator. Thanks very much for joining us to talk us through the state of play inside the cabinet. Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, coming in for a lot of criticism this week, but not quite as straightforward a story as it may look, as Katy explained for us there.